Good morning, everyone. We're all here to put our human lives into good use, aren't we? That is what we're here for. The more you understand this, the more these meetings, these sessions, these get-togethers will make sense to you. And the more productive they'll become for you. Very few human beings have ever understood the value of human life. It is such a plight. It is a sorry state of affairs. They're born, they live, and then they all die. Most of them don't accept that they have to go through this thing time and time and time again. Some do, some don't. But the unfortunate thing is, even those who do understand and accept, even they do very little about it. Mostly because they don't know what to do about it. But you're here to make a difference. You're not here to make a difference to me. You're here to make a difference in your own lives. The one thing that will remain with you at the end of all this, when everything is said and done, this is all that will remain, ladies and gentlemen, I promise you. Mark my words. All else that you've built, they'll all crumble. They'll all perish with you. Anything that you think belongs to you will die with you. Because after all you think that belongs to you is only in your own thoughts. Nothing really belongs to you. It's just what you think belongs to you. So what you think belongs to you will die with you, won't it? Speak to someone who's got dementia. I used to work with those patients in my younger years. When I wanted to do medicine once, they wanted to have some experience under my belt. You need to convince the universities that you're cut out for the job. So when I went and worked some time in a care home, I think I've shared some of these stories with you in the past. And there, I realized what life was. People who had everything to their name. The well-off, the well-to-do, the affluent. This is not here. It was in a country where everyone wants to be. The country of promise. And yet, when Frank got dementia, although before contracting it, he was well known, he was very respected. He himself was a doctor. He had a lot of property to his name. He had a large family. Everything going for him. Children. But when he got dementia, I remember him. But he couldn't remember that he was the same person that came to wash him and clean him and feed him the previous day. Every day he would greet me like he'd never seen me before. So the first 5 minutes of my encounter with him every morning would be me introducing myself to him. Ask Frank how much he has. He doesn't even have his name to himself. I have to remind him he's Frank. So what had he earned for himself? He was 76 when he passed away. I was washing him. Only 10 minutes earlier, I'd reminded him that he was Frank. I'd just introduced myself for him for the day. And that was it. That was the end of Frank. I'm trying to save you from that inevitable end, ladies and gentlemen. This is where you come to do something for yourselves. I know you care passionately about everybody else. I know you care about your families. I know you care about your country. I know you care about the world. But who's going to care about you? So don't ever make yourself think or feel that, these Sunday mornings are just a waste of time. Because if you do that, that will be the most regretful choice you've ever made. That I can tell you with confidence. Not because it is I who come here and do these talks. I'm not here for a follower base. I'm not here for subscribers. I'm not here for anything. I don't even know what you offer me. Every worship you come and lay down at my feet, I go, as soon as I get back to the monastery, I take my prayer mat with me and go and meet my teacher. I get down on my knees and offer all of those prayers to him and those worships, because they don't belong to me. I am who my teacher has made me. I was not always like this. If you'd seen me in a pair of trousers and a short and a shirt, you'd never worship me, would you? What for? If I used to share the things with you that I used to know, you'd never regard me at all. But today, you venerate me, you worship me. I understand well and truly it is not me that you worship. It is the message that I bring to you. So I know from whom I learned this message. It is from my teacher, and he from his teacher, and he from his teacher, and so on, until we come across a great teacher. That is why he is our teacher. He is the master. And he only wanted one thing. He didn't want our respect. He didn't want the flowers that you offer at his feet. He didn't want the oil lamps that you offer him, nor the food that you offer him either. His father invited him. Why do you go begging? It is not our tradition to be beggars like this. We are kings. Why don't you come back to the palace and I will feed you and all 100,000 of your monks every single day? Why don't you let me have that honor? And the Buddha said, what? Oh, great king. That is the way of kings. But now, I'm no longer a king of lands. I'm not a king to people. I'm only a king of hearts. Our way is the way of the Buddhists. We take ourselves where we have to serve, where people need us. See, all he thought about was all of us. We owe it to him, ladies and gentlemen, to save ourselves. We owe it to him. You owe it to your parents to save yourselves. You owe it to your teachers to save yourselves. You owe it to anyone and everyone who did whatever they could for your benefit, on your regard. You owe it to them to save yourselves, to exonerate yourselves, to free yourselves, to liberate yourselves. And that is why you come here. So bring yourselves here with purpose. This is all that will matter in the end, I promise you. Remember the other day I told you, as parents, you've got to be very careful, because this is one of the greatest bonds that you will struggle with right till the very end. In your last moments, why is it that in every other home you go to, people have problems and they try to use black magic to free themselves from those problems? Because the dead don't stay dead. They come back. They come back because they can't let go. Unfinished business. What if the same fate awaits you? Whatever you leave unfinished, you will have to come back to finish. The Buddha doesn't come back. The great Arahants, they don't come back. They don't return because their job was done. Job finished. So please, have some urgency. Know what you're here for. Come here with purpose. And I know you do. This is the thing. This is always a catch-22. The people who need to hear it are not here. It's always the way it is, isn't it? You give a talk to people and you tell them why they should be here, they're already there. It is those who are not here who have to hear these words, but hey, they're not here. But when will they ever? You're all great men and women. You've done so much for everybody else. Now's the time to do something for yourselves. Time's ticking. You're not going to hear that tick-tock every day. Whatever you're waiting for, you're also waiting for something else. I often remind our listeners, when you're waiting for the bus, remember you're not just the bus you're waiting for. Death is coming as well. When you're at the office waiting for your next interview or your next meeting to turn up, it's not just that you're waiting for. Because whatever you're waiting for that and death. And this will come. Death is not something to be fearful of. Death is something for us to do something about, so that we don't have to fail in the face of death. Maybe there's someone that was here last week who's not here this week because their time was up. So come here with purpose. This is the only thing that will matter at the end. Not a penny in the bank you can take with you. Not any amount of land that you have owned to your name you can take with you. Not your children can you take with you. And that is why you'll come back for them. People sometimes come and share with me stories about how they've moved into a new home, a new house, and then there's trouble. The previous owners, they're now dead, but they come back. And then they cause all sorts of havoc. So what can you do about it then? It's too late. You can chase them away. Bring black magic, whatever, bring a katariya, you can chase them away. But what about them? Who's going to talk to them? Who's going to save them? It's too late for them, isn't it? I know, there are those people who make offerings. Sometimes they go to the temple, make offerings, and you ask them, "Sir, why is it that you come to the temple trying to make an offering?" "Because my dead parents, they won't stay dead. They keep coming back. They're troubling my children. There's always a foul smell at home. We don't know why." I didn't used to believe in this stuff until I saw it with my own eyes. I didn't used to believe in this stuff. Now I understand that there is more than what meets the eye. So I'm no longer a fool to only say, what is out there, I must be able to see. There is lots more, ladies and gentlemen. The more I learn, the more I understand, the more I realize how much I don't know. I used to think that, the things I knew were a lot, but today I realize the things that I know I can fill a book with, but the things I don't know I can fill a whole library up with. There's so much that we don't know. And the pitiful thing is, much of it is what is going to happen to us if we don't do something about ourselves. I honor you and I respect you because you care about yourselves. And as of late, a lot of you have been bringing your parents here. Kudos. Hats off to you. Because now you begin to realize if they are not able to let go of me, then the same fate awaits them. Really well done. Two people I care much about, parents and my teachers, because I know who I am today, even in my lay life, and today in my ordained life. I am here because of them. And I have a lot of respect for all of you who bring your parents along as and when they can, at least, because they are still able to do this. If they can hear, if they can listen, if they can understand, if they can bring themselves here, right? This is the only thing that's going to be left for them. Everything else you do, you can, on a Mother's Day, you can give them a Mother's Day card. On Father's Day, you can give them a box of chocolates. But so what? What's left at the end of it? You can take them to a 5-star restaurant or 7-star restaurant. You can take them wherever. You can take them around the world. But all that ends. What if you can give them something that is timeless? This is real gratitude. So well done to all of you, especially those who can and therefore do bring their parents along in the hope that they can get something from these talks. And even if it is their last few years, because it's never too late for this, ladies and gentlemen, it's never too late. It's only too late when you've given up, not else. So even if you have to bring your parents here and they need a hearing aid to listen to what I have to say, that's still okay. It's not too late. But there are those members in my family, my grandmother, it's too late for her. She can't hear a word I say. It's too late. Because it was too late by the time I discovered the Dhamma. So I can't help her now. But you can. We can do all this because there was one man who didn't follow a path. He made his own path. And then he left a trail for us to follow in his footsteps. And it is to his name we make reverence. That is why we bring our palms together in veneration. To remind ourselves of how grateful we are. The sacrifice that he made on our behalf. When everything was going against him, when the whole world said, what on earth are you doing? Go back to your kingdom, go back to your palace, go back and be with your family. You're about to be a wheel-turning monarch. What on earth do you think you're doing? And we think we've left things behind. What have we left behind? What have we really left behind? What is there for us to let go? Who here is king or is a crown prince? None of us. That's why we owe it to him. We honestly do. We really do. We owe it to him. So for his sake as much as ours, let us ensure that we do the best we can. All I ask from you, ladies and gentlemen, is do your 100%. Not your 99%. I'm not happy with that. Do your 100%. Your 100 does not need to be my 100. It does not need to be the 100 of the person sat next to you, but do your 100%. If you're doing something, do it fully. Do it to the best you can. Do your best and then some. I always say this. Do the best you can. In every other facet of life, you do the best you can, don't you? That's why in here we'll have engineers, doctors, teachers, lawyers. In the pinnacle of your careers, you'll all have achieved that, or you're on the way to that. If you've done business, then you've become a well-known, a renowned businessman. If you're a doctor, then you've become a very respected, a well-regarded doctor. If you're a teacher, the same goes. But what about yourselves? If you want to reach the pinnacle of self-service, in other words, freeing yourselves and liberating yourselves, achieving ultimate bliss, then there's only one achievement that you can aim for, and that is the bliss of Nibbāna. Make use of your good lives, ladies and gentlemen, because if you don't, someone else will. What you don't realize is that is what's happening to you right now. You are all born with precious life. This is a precious human life. If you don't put it to good use, if you don't have a plan for your life, someone else will. That's why when you sit in front of a television, someone else is making use of your human life. All they have to do is put something into your heads, and then you will go working your socks off, trying to earn the money to buy the things that they want to sell to you. That is what you do. Sometimes you later regret, why on earth did I make these choices? I didn't even want them in the first place. And then you take the receipt and have a look at it and say, no returns, no refunds. It's too late now. Have a plan for life. And in this plan, you should not just feature your professional life, because I think that you specialize in. That's good. Good. It's not just your educational life. It's not just your family life. Not just your health. I'm talking about you. When everything else is put to a side, you and you alone. Have a plan for that. Because it is only that plan that will see you through well. Everything else will just fall apart. So that is what you're here for. So remember, you're not doing me a favor by coming here. You're not doing the school a favor by coming here. In fact, if we weren't here today, they'll probably be using these facilities for something else. So we're not doing anyone a favor by coming here. We're doing ourselves a favor. So that's what we're here for. With that in mind then, let's begin today's proceedings. So let us take a moment to remind ourselves why we are here, to renew our oath to ourselves, a pledge of allegiance that we take to the Buddha, Dhamma and the Sangha, which is Nibbāna, the path to Nibbāna, and the practice that takes us to Nibbāna. Let us observe the 5 precepts so that it may guide us and keep us safe and keep us on the right side of things as we take every step on our way to liberation. And make a firm resolve that this has to end with us achieving ultimate bliss and ultimate happiness. Let's begin.
Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa.
I'm going to say something and I hope it doesn't offend you. But it's always good to put the disclaimer out first, isn't it? Because some people might be offended, particularly if they've been a victim of this. But it's important to understand what these things are really. Otherwise, ladies and gentlemen, we live in this make-believe world, a world that people have, our society, the internet, the television, just people around it. One of the worst things that, let me put it this way, one of the things that society doesn't really want you to do is to be a free thinker. They don't want you to do that. Because if everyone started to think, really think, not just think what other people want them to think, but actually start thinking for yourselves. If you started to think liberally, this world couldn't survive. This world couldn't exist in the way it does. All the systems would collapse. That's why in every society, in every economy, there has to just be a few people at the top. These are the thinkers. The rest of us, we just have to follow. If we started thinking, then that would be mayhem, chaos. Because we'd start thinking about what it is that's happening to us. I'm going to show you a few videos today. One in particular will not go online. These sermons are published on YouTube. So I'm sorry to those who look forward to listen to these or watch these sermons on YouTube, and you'd be glad that you came along today. This particular video I can't put online. Because the moment we put this video online, they will block it. not because it's copyright. They'll block it because they'll say, this is offensive. How dare you? Because out there, they want to create this fantasy of a world for all of us. I'm not saying they're vile or vicious. I'm just saying this is how the world is. We need to understand this and shape our lives accordingly. I always ask you, how much of your choices are free choices? How much free will do you really have? We think we make our own choices, we think we make our own decisions, but ultimately, those choices, those decisions have already been laid down for us. The cards have already been picked. They normally give you 2 or 3 to pick one out of, just to give you this feeling that you are in control, you are in command. But the rules have already been laid down. The script has already been written. We're just acting it out. If you're not a free thinker, you will just be following someone else's plan for you. That's why I need you to wake up. It's okay if we just want to go in samsara. Just the run of the mill, day in, day out, we just go through in samsara. Suffering happens, ups and downs in life. If this is the sorry tale that you want to keep telling yourselves, then fair enough. Swaminatha, this is life. Some days we are happy, some days we have to suffer. That's what life is all about, isn't it? If that is the story you want to tell yourselves, then fair enough. You don't even need to come along again. Because for that, the world is just fine. In some countries, I don't need to name them, but I think you'll know. In some countries, the people who rule, and once again, I'm not trying to raise my voice against the rulers, I'm just saying this is what's happening to you. Because I'm trying to help you come out of this box that people have put you in, so that you can liberate yourselves. In some countries, ladies and gentlemen, so that people don't have to think about the problems that are there in their lives, every 2 months, every 2 weeks even, they'll come up with some movie, a film, a new album, and just indulge people in sensuality. So you forget the problems in life. Don't be that person who forgets the things in life, who forgets reality. Because when you sit in front of a TV, when you're watching that movie for 3 hours straight, right? For those 3 hours, you forget everything, don't you? That's why when you're stressed, what do? Either you go and get some sleep, or you do something that is, well, actually, it's just the same. You sleep. Only this time with your eyes wide open. When you're sat in front of the TV set and you're watching a 3-hour movie, what are you? Awake or asleep? What do you think? You think you're awake? You're asleep. Asleep to what? Reality. Because at the end of that film, at the end of watching that movie, reality will strike you again. Now you have the bills to pay. You have the children to look after. You have work to get to tomorrow. You have the exams you have to study for. You have the grievances, you have the suffering, you have the sorrow that you have to deal with. But for those 3 hours, you can forget about it. And those things, they get online, nobody says a word. But you speak about reality to people. If I were to put a video up online, even if it was in one of the sermons, of someone getting dismembered, meaning, say 2 rival gangs fighting out each other, someone chops someone's ear off, or arm off, or a leg off, limb off, head off, put something like that online, they'll even ban the channel. They'll say, shh, you mustn't talk about things like that. It's too disturbing. It's shocking. Don't put that kind of stuff online. The other day, there's a team who are responsible for our social media work so that our sermons get online and people get to listen to these talks, right, wherever they are in the world. The other day, One of the gentlemen who's responsible for this, he came and met me and he said, Swaminathan, our logo has been banned. I was like, what? What for? And he said, you wouldn't guess it. If you've seen our logo, it's got someone in a meditative pose, right, with the Dhamma chakra behind, and on a lotus. You'll see it on screen today when I show you the video. If you've not, if you've not picked up on it previously. But the logo's been banned because it features nudity. When you see the logo, you tell me. I mean, I sometimes wonder, what are we living in? Is this like a Singiti parcel? This is what people are doing out there. They're covering up everything. They're trying to close your eyes to reality. But online you can have all sorts of things that arouse your sensuality. That is fine. Right? But talk about what's going to happen to you. Talk about death. Talk about a decomposing body. You can't put a decomposing body online. They'll block the channel. They'll give you a strike. This is too much to handle, too much to bear. Say a man who's cut himself, injured himself, and is bleeding. No, can't put that stuff online. It's graphic, too shocking. But this is reality. These things, they break. We need to realize that. We need to realize that we have come into this world with a curse. This is a curse, ladies and gentlemen. I don't think this is a blessing. Human life is a blessing, yes, because we can do something about our fate, our destiny, what our future entails for us. But this, are you going to tell me that this is a blessing? Those beyond 60, stand up and tell me that this is a blessing. 60 years plus. Tell me this is a blessing. Perhaps the youthful in here will say, yes, Swaminathan, look, my body is a temple. If I could, I'd offer flowers every day. That's why I adorn it. Wait till you're 60, my dearest child, and then come back and tell me the same story. I know what my folks are going through right now. My father, my mother, my grandparents, I know what they're going through right now. It's too late to help them. This is no blessing, this is a curse. Otherwise, why would the Buddhas preach a way to free ourselves from the karma worlds, free ourselves from these bodies? Even the Buddha had to suffer because of this body. You can't sit straight for an hour at a stretch, can you? Either you start stooping, and then your back starts to hurt, then you start stretching. Then you start stretching your arms and your legs. Are you sat in the most comfortable posture right now? Tell me the same thing 10 minutes later. You'll want to change your posture because this will no longer be comfortable. It's either too cold or it's too hot. You're either too hungry or you've eaten too much. Don't get me started on all the ailments that you have to endure. How many pills do you take per day? Just ask yourself these questions, ladies and gentlemen. How many pills do you take per day? There's the sugar tablet, there's the pressure tablet, there's the heart tablet, there's the liver tablet, the lung tablet, the back tablet, the knee tablet, the leg, the foot tablet, the toe tablet. I mean, come on. And you're trying to tell me that this is a blessing? Even childhood, in your childhood, childbirth. I know the mothers in the room, don't get me started, Swaminathan. See, this instrument, this device has been brought in to inflict punishment for being born in the sensual world. Because you want to enjoy sensuality, this is the punishment that you have to suffer. You are born with the punishment. Because you want to enjoy delicious tastes, this is the price you have to pay. You didn't read the small print, did you, before you signed the dotted line? There was a time when you were a Brahma. You can't remember this story, so let me relate it to you. There was a time when you were a Brahma. And in those times, you didn't want taste. Taste, you understood taste for what it was, so you were not looking for pleasure out of it. Today you are beginning to understand, through the Dhamma, that there is no such thing called a delicious taste. It's just taste. Deliciousness is just an experience that you get when you free yourself from vexation. You are beginning to understand this stuff. Good, well done. So you can free yourself from these bodies once and for all. But there was a time when you were fed up of this sensual lust. It just goes round in a circle, ladies and gentlemen. Unless you become an anagami where you are free from these cankers once and for all, they keep coming back to you. You can only suppress them for a while. You can of course sit down for meditation and contemplate on how this body, you can contemplate on the body. How the body is just going to decay and rot. And then you will have repulsive thoughts towards the body. But this is not Buddhist meditation, by any means. Because in Buddhism, we don't talk about repulsion. We talk about acceptance. We don't ask you to look at a body that is decomposing and think to yourself that it is dirty. It is festering. Look at the pus that's leaking out of it. That's not what we do. It's not for you to have disgust or repulsive thoughts towards. It's for you to understand what it is. Anicca. We made some headway into this last week. We'll talk more about it today. But there are certain meditative practices in other faiths, in other practices, where you can suppress sensual desire for a while. These are things we've done in the past. So when you're able to suppress these thoughts for a while, that takes you birth in the Brahma worlds. In the Brahma worlds, they don't indulge in sensuality. But they still enjoy sight, they enjoy sound. That's why the Brahmas, they only have two faculties, the eye and the ear. They don't have the sense of taste like you and I do. Because they have suppressed the desire for that. Suppressed, not eradicated, just suppressed. That's why you were there once and you're back here again. Unfinished business. So back then, you had this thought, why not? Why don't I enjoy taste? Good taste, good things, good food. Why don't I enjoy those tastes? Why don't I enjoy physical touch, the sensation of good physical touch? You know what I'm talking about. That feels good. And depending on whose arm this is, it feels better. You know what I'm talking about. I don't need to spell it out to you. There's a 6-year-old in my audience. But you know what I'm talking about. You wanted those sensations. And so you said, I'll pay any price. Can I have them? The sense of smell. So I can smell lovely things. So I can taste lovely things. So I can feel lovely sensations. Can I have them? And then you sign the deal. Yep, you can, but you got to pay the price. Little did we know that this was the price you're going to have to pay. And today, you're born with it, and for the next 60 years, 70 years, 80 years of your life, you're going to have to pay the price. See, from head to toe, ladies and gentlemen, can you tell me there's one part of your body that you're proud of? Name one part of your body that brings you only happiness. Come on. Let me be silent until you come up with an answer. Name one part of your body that brings you happiness. Are you going to tell me it's my eye that brings me happiness? No, ladies and gentlemen, the eye does not bring you happiness. Happiness is not in sight. If it were, we should all be happy looking at the same thing. Now you're understanding this stuff. You know this stuff now. Beauty is not in the sight. It's a creation of the mind. It's when the mind is vexed and the mind relieves itself from vexation, that's when you see beauty. So the eye does not bring you beauty. So therefore the eye does not bring you happiness. But what does the eye bring you? Why do I have to wear this thing? The price I'm having to pay because I wanted this. This is a price I have to pay. This is a price I have to pay. I'm not talking about my robe, but the fact that I have to be dressed. Because you have to constantly keep yourself covered from the elements. The heat is out to get you, the cold is out to get you, the water is out to get you, the elements are out to get you. The germs are out to get you. You have to fend them off all the time. You know, inside of this there's a whole lot going on to fend off the enemies. There's a whole system inside, although you don't know this. You can't see it, but it's happening. All you have to do is put something through here and the rest of it happens. But sometimes it doesn't happen properly. And then you start coughing, you start sneezing, you start drooling. There's not a single person here who's not had the experience of a diarrhea. You know what that feels like? Swami, no, I said, don't talk about diarrhea. Really? Grow up. But that's the kind of thing we shouldn't talk about. Because this is Singitipasala. I don't mean you. I mean this fantasy world that people are creating out there. You can put all sorts of videos online, on all these social media channels about, things that ignite the fire of lust within people. You can put all sorts of that stuff. But talk about what happens to people in old age. Talk about what happens to people when they have an accident, when they fall off a height, and how they have to suffer when they break an arm or a leg. You can't put that stuff because it's too graphic. Once again, I'm not talking about their policies. I've got nothing against that. What I'm saying is, you are the lab rats. If you don't have a plan for your life, ladies and gentlemen, you fall into someone else's plan, and this is what is happening. When you're on social media, you are seeing what they want you to see. That's how the recommendations work. They make the algorithms. You don't decide that, do you? The things that they want you to buy, they'll show them to you. That's why you end up buying them. Is that bad? Is that bad? No, that's not bad. They're here to make money. They're here to do business. Let them do it. But what are you here for? I don't mean here. What are you here for? To free yourself from suffering, right? Then you're doing the wrong thing. That is the point I'm trying to make here. That sit yourself in front of a TV. Someone said the other day, someone was trying to, I think they were trying to buy some internet package somewhere in Sri Lanka, and they said you have to buy the voice line, you have to buy the internet line, and now you get these TV channels that you also have to purchase as part of the subscription package. Apparently, there are multiple choices, and the smallest number of channels you can have is 60. I was very surprised. So they have multiple packages, from 60 to 120. I was thinking, soon enough, they're going to have so many channels that you only need to watch one per day, per week, for the whole year. We're not far off. Technology is good. I'm a technologist myself. Technology is good, but what it is used for is what makes the difference. You are becoming a victim of the environment that you're in, ladies and gentlemen. I need you to open your eyes and realize that this is happening to you. I talk about this every day because it's so important. Otherwise I come here and we only have this chat every Sunday morning. But the rest of the week, you're out there and people are doing what they want to you. So the question I had to ask you, I told you this might offend somebody, but it's not intended to offend. Let me ask you this question. How do you define rape? What is your definition of rape? This might be sensitive to some, especially if you've been a victim of it. If you have, we are here to help. Don't you worry. Because I can help you understand that it was not you who got raped. And then you'll be free. But for the time being, what is rape? Rape is when a certain deed is done without your consent. Isn't it? Do the same deed with your consent, it's not rape, is it now? But the effect is the same. Physically? Mentally? Yes, different effect. So that is rape. But if they have your consent, that's not rape, that's consensual. But the effect is still the same. Just have a think about what the world around you is doing to you right now. Physically, they're not even touching a hair on your body, but mentally, psychologically, what are they doing to you? The only reason you don't call it rape is because you have given them consent. That's why it's not rape. You are being abused. Because indoctrinations are being planted in your mind every day. Sensual desires are being planted in your mind every day. This is good, this is nice, this is pleasurable, this is delicious. These thoughts are being planted in your mind every day. And then inside of you, vexation begins to appear. Once you start vexing, there is no relief until you relieve yourself from vexation. So therefore, you have to keep going after the object of your vexation. Yesterday at the monastery, I was talking to our regulars there, and I asked them the question, how much energy have you spent already trying to build a world around you? The houses that you have built, the homes you have built, the cars you have built, the property that you've built, you're not going to take any of this with you. You're going to leave all of this behind with you. Maybe you have a 3-bedroom house, and each bedroom has an attached toilet, but there's only you and maybe one or two others at home, perhaps. Some people have 5-bedroom houses. Wonderful. When I see them, I go sadhu sadhu, because I rejoice in the merits that they must have done to earn something like that. But here's the thing. You can only be in 1 bedroom at once. But the remaining 4 bedrooms, who has to maintain them? Who has to take care of them? Who has to look after them? It's still you. You can only use 1 at once. But all the other rooms, you are the security guard. This is the job that we inherit. A security guard. You have to guard them. You have to protect them. You have to preserve them. You have to maintain them. So who asked you to build a 5-bedroom house? Who said that that was the right thing to do? You were not born that way. The people around you. They indoctrinated you. They put these thoughts into your mind. And then they fed your ego. Where bigger was better. To be someone, to stand out, I need big. It has to be big. The bigger, the better. I mean, this is a big thing nowadays. There's enough food in this planet, ladies and gentlemen, to feed every human being alive, and then half more. So we have 8 billion people on this planet. There's enough food to feed 12 billion people every day. But why is it that people are still starving? Why is hunger such a problem still? There's enough land for everyone, because Mother Nature does not produce what she can't sustain. We are all her children. She does not bring into this world what she can't sustain. But Mother Nature, there's a force that goes against Mother Nature, and that is ignorance and attachment. Ignorance is the force that goes against nature. Ignorance tells us that we need more for ourselves. Bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. It has to be a big mansion. A small house doesn't work anymore. It's only I who's driving, but my car has to have 3, 4, 5 lines of seats or rows of seats. But it's only I. I fly in a private jet. Just be me by myself. I've got nothing against, once again, please don't be offended. Maybe you have a private jet. Fair dues. All I'm trying to explain to you is, think about the mindset that you have. Think about what's going through your heads and think about what you have put yourselves through. Is this what you really want? Has I given you the happiness that you want? Or have you become a slave of your desires? This is the truth that we need to face up to. You weren't born this way. But you spent enough time with people around you who fed these things into your heads. And now, in the name of happiness, there seems to be a lot that you have to do. Ignore these sermons for a second. Ignore the dhamma for a second. Ignore what you do to develop yourself spiritually for a second. Right? Now think about all the things that you do in your lives. Think about how you try to please yourselves and make yourselves happy. Part of it is to do with your eyes. The rest you do with your ears. The rest you do with your nose. The rest you do with your tongue. And the rest you do with your body. I mean, if your 5 senses were taken away from you, just for a day, wouldn't you go insane? Just think about it. If your 5 senses were, leave alone 5, if someone took your tongue away for a day, you can still eat, you can still speak, but you can't taste for a day. Just imagine how that would feel. If you went blind for a day, just think about how that would feel. If you went deaf for a day, right now you might say, yeah, I can manage that, Swaminathan, but talk to someone who's lost their sense of sight, and then you will understand how you will feel when that happens to you. But the problem is this, ladies and gentlemen. We live a life thinking that we'll have these to ourselves forever and ever and ever. We don't prepare ourselves for the inevitable. And I'm not just talking about death. Because I've always told you, let's not worry about whether there's life after death. That is not the problem we are trying to solve here. And I'm thankful that none of you have actually come up to me and asked me, is there going to be life after death? And is that the problem that we need to be worried and concerned about? No, let's not worry about that. You all know one thing for certain, you're alive now, right? That you don't have to check with someone, you know for certain that you're all alive now, and you suffer. But that is the problem. So for the remaining part of your life, the remainder of your life, if you have to suffer, then that is a problem. You suffer, and that is why you use your 5 senses to free yourselves from suffering, and you don't even know this. You don't even know this. Mentally, your mind is always seeking. It's always seeking. It's always seeking pleasure. Thankfully, you still have your 5 sense organs that are operating and bringing you inputs from the outside world just to keep you sane. So really, as you offer flowers to the Buddha, also offer some flowers to your 5 senses, because this is what keeps you sane. Because right now you're a slave. You're a slave to the sights out there, you're a slave to the sounds out there, the smell, the taste, and the touch. And that is why you left the Brahma worlds and now you're in a human world. And look at the price that you have to pay. Remember the last time you had to go to the doctors? And the last time you got your blood check, your blood reports, and what did they say? too much of this, too much of that, cut down on this, do more of that. Take these pills 3 times a day, and don't forget, if you do, you'll only have 6 months left. And honestly, just think about it, ladies and gentlemen. We are born human beings, and think about just the number of pills that you have to keep putting into yourself every day just to keep yourselves alive. And tell me that this is a blessing. Just take a mental count of the number of pills you have to just keep shoving inside your mouth just to keep alive. And tell me this is a blessing. You want to live like this? This is the rent that you have to keep paying so that they don't kick you out. Skip 3 square meals and you're out. Stop 2 breaths and you're out. Don't feed yourself for 7 days, you're out. Don't give yourself water for 3 days, you're out. See, you're constantly having to maintain and upkeep this. But the sad truth is, although we think that this helps us to achieve happiness, happiness is not in it. And that is what I'm trying to explain to you. And that is what you're beginning to understand as well. So the more you realize this, the more you understand it, you will be free from the attachment that you have to these bodies. Then you don't have to suffer. You know the reason that death is so fearful? It's not really because you're afraid of dying. That's not why. Because of course there are those among you who believe in life after birth. So why are you worried about dying then? Because you're going to be born again. So why worry about death? It is not death you fear. It is the things that you're attached to, that you can't let go, that you're fearful of leaving behind. Anything that the mind is attached to, if it can't let go, if it can't leave it behind, now you're scared, now you're worried. Now just the sound, just the word death brings fear into your minds. Sometimes when you cross the street, right, and you just miss oncoming traffic. Have you ever been in that situation? Most of us have. Think about how that made you feel in those moments. Your heart starts pounding, right? And you start sweating. Your palms go wet, and you think, "Gosh, that was so close. I just missed it, just by an inch." Then don't come here and tell me, "I'm ready to die anytime, Swaminath." No, you're not. If you are ready to die at any time, come and join me. Then I'll believe you. Come join me. Come with me back to the monastery. Then I'll believe that you're ready to die. You're not ready to die because you can't leave your folks behind. So how can you tell me you're ready to die? You can't leave your house behind. You can't leave your pet dog behind. You can't leave your wife behind. You can't leave the other wife behind. You can't leave your children behind. These are the material things. Now, you can't leave your sight behind. You can't leave your sounds behind. You can't leave the smells, the taste behind. Otherwise, come. Come on, I dare you. Come on. So how can you say, I'm fearless in the face of death? You are not. This is proof. So if you're not fearless in the face of death, then that death is coming to you. You're waiting for the bus. You think you're just waiting for the bus. No, you're waiting for the bus and then another one. The reaper is coming. Why don't you see him? Why don't you see him? You're waiting for the class. You're waiting for the sermon. Maybe you come here, sit down at 8:15. You're waiting for 8:30. Swami wants you to come up. You're watching the clock. Still 8:15. 8:17. Oh God, come soon. 8:30. As you wish for 8:30 to come to you sooner rather than later, what else are you wishing to come to you sooner rather than later? Huh? What else? Death. It's okay. Death is okay. Death is fine, death is not a problem. If you are fearless of death. But when you are fearful of death, when you have all these things you can't leave behind, now death is a problem. And that's why people don't even like to talk about it. Do you think that's a topic that generally comes up, when you're having a party at home? Death? Let's all talk about death today. No, these are the topics that shouldn't be talked about. Hush, hush. Nobody should talk about death. People shouldn't talk about cancer. Don't talk about it. Don't talk about it. Why don't talk about it? Singiti Pasal. Montessori. Man up. Face up to what is coming your way, ladies and gentlemen. Don't let them create this fantasy world and then enclave you within that fantasy world and then make you believe that none of that is happening to you. A couple of weeks ago, I promised to show you a video, and I'm going to show it to you now. I told you, if you as a parent if you can't let go of the bond that you have to your children, then be prepared to face situations like this. I'm going to show you a mother who loved her children so dearly. When I even say the word mother, it's such a warm, fuzzy feeling that you get, right? Oh, mother, motherness, motherhood. It's just a lovely feeling, isn't it? A chitta thinks it's a mother. That is really what's going on. None of you are mothers, honestly. Your minds believe that you are a mother. Frank was a father to 3 children. He didn't know that. Certainly not after he got his dementia. So then, was he a father? His children could drop dead in front of him and he wouldn't care. Wouldn't bother him. Because in his mind, he didn't know that he was a father. But biologically, yes, he was a father. It is not the biological connection that brings you suffering then, is it? Because if it is a biological connection, then Frank should be worried. Even when he died, when we talk to him about death, he doesn't understand death. So what? He had a peaceful death. That is what you think. Because then you might wonder, well, would it not be better if we all just went mad? Or if we all just had dementia, right, towards the the latter part of our lives, when we just don't know what's going to happen to us, and then death comes and we're just gone. Not so. Remember, it is only those who have understood the dhamma, who are at least on the path to becoming a sotapanna, can have any hope of what happens after this life. But we don't talk much about what happens after this life. Partly because there are a lot of non-believers. That's why, this is a lesson that will come to you in future talks. One day, ladies and gentlemen, I will not need to explain to you that there is life after death. You will come to your own realization about that. Once you understand how the mind works, how that the mind is not one unit, but rather a series of manifestations that arise and pass away when the right conditions are present. Once you understand this science, soon enough you will understand that rebirth, not as you know it today, because right now you're thinking, I die and I'm born again. I was in a previous birth, I'm going to be in a next birth. I'm a human today, I will be a deva tomorrow. Oh, maybe I was a Brahma in the previous world. This is how you understand the world right now. But soon enough, once you understand how the mind works, you will realize that that is not what's really going on. These are just chittas. I've explained to you how a chitta works. These are just chittas that arise and pass away, but in each of those chittas, you believe you are someone. You believe your identity because you make it up. This will start making sense to you. And when that day dawns upon you, you will not need to ask me, Swaminatha, is there such a thing called reincarnation? Trust me, just hang in there. All will come to those who wait. But I want to show you this video clip of a mother who doted on her children, her 3 young children, and the fate that came to her at the end. This video is not for the faint-hearted, I'm afraid. This is an incident that happened in Sri Lanka. I think it was on social media, it did its rounds back then. Some of you may have already seen it, others may not have. Others might have seen the first 2 seconds of it and looked away. So if you're not prepared to see this, then it comes with a disclaimer. Please look away. This video will never see the light of YouTube. It's not going to go on YouTube, unfortunately, because we can't put it on there. People will say it's too graphic. It's too shocking. It's too terrorizing. But you can show video games of children shooting people down, running into old grannies. That's fine. That sort of violence is fine. Pornography is fine, isn't it? But the stuff like this, that's not fine. They have to be moderated out. That's what I'm saying. They're creating a Montessori. This is like raising farm animals. That's what they're doing to us. I hope you realize this. It's like rearing herd. That's what they're doing to you. Please realize this. They're isolating you from everything that's going on in reality, blocking you out, because when the social media, they get to control what you see, they get to control what you hear, they get to control how you experience the world, and then they completely shut down a certain side of the world, things that you're not supposed to see, things that you're not supposed to hear. But these are the inevitable truths that happen to you. So, if you're not prepared to watch this, please look away. But parents and to-be parents, I ask you this one question as you watch this. Have this answer ready for me at the end of this talk, at the end of this clip. Are you ready for something like this? What's the question? Are you ready for something like this? All right, let's watch it. So, what's the answer? Are you going to tell me that's never going to happen to me? I have a feeling that mother was probably also in a sermon. And someone said, these things could happen. The monk said, these things could happen. And the mother said, no, it doesn't happen to me. There are mothers just like that in here. It doesn't happen, or you think it doesn't happen to you until it happens to you. What do you think is the most shocking part there? What do you think, what is the terrorizing part? What happened to the children? The world will tell you that is what the shocking part is. Look at what happened to those children. What a shock. How sad, how sorry. Things like that should never happen to children. They're so young, so innocent, they were just playing around. And then lightning struck. Or they were electrocuted. They're all talking about what happened to the children. That is not what I see. For me, the shocking part is what has happened to the mother. She thinks she's a mother. Repeat after me. She thinks she's a mother. That is why she suffers. When she thinks she's a mother, she has children. Because she has children, she is attached to her children. And then her happiness comes from her children. So when the children are there, when they are happy, she is happy. But if something happens to the children, that's it. See, ladies and gentlemen, this is the problem with conditional happiness. If your happiness you get from conditionality, if your happiness you seek from conditioned things, then you are all waiting for this to happen into your lives. This could be children, this could be your husband, could be your wife, could be your parents. Did you see how the mother was suffering there? She was almost tearing her hair out. She couldn't bear the pain. Perhaps she went insane after that. What was her fault? Not having children. That was not her fault. So having children was not the wrong thing that she did. Here's what the wrong thing was. Not listening to the dhamma. Not understanding the dhamma. Not realizing the dhamma. Because what was done was done. She had her children, she brought them up, she fed them, right? That was all done. You can't reverse that. I'm not asking you to reverse any of the actions you've taken in your life. There's no point crying over spilt milk. What I'm asking you to do is do something today that will determine your future. See, this is why understanding the Dhamma is so crucial. It's so vital, it's so critical to your future happiness. That's why I said right at the start of this sermon, ladies and gentlemen, bring yourselves here for whom? For whom? For yourselves. You think children will only make you happy, right? That's why you have them. Is that so? I mean, here we're talking about an extreme. But what about day-to-day? Day-to-day events, day-to-day situations. Right, if you go back to when your child was just an infant, a little child, whenever your child cried, it made you upset. Right? If someone did something bad to your child, that made you upset. If someone does some harm to your child, that makes you go mad. This is the connection that parents have with their children. It's an unbreakable bond. And what does the world say? It says the parenthood, motherhood, fatherhood, this is like the Holy Grail. Yes, motherhood is good. I accept. For one reason. It brings a human being into this world so that that human being can then go on to attain Nibbāna. That is why I think motherhood is great. Because if not for a mother, we would not have Prince Siddhartha. If not for a mother, I would not have had a chance to free myself from suffering and not be a son again, not be a child again to anyone. That is why I think motherhood is great. That is why I think fatherhood is great. Can you say the same about those children who are born into this world, they get an education, they get a good upbringing, but they end up doing drugs? They end up becoming philanderers, burglars, thieves, robbers, end up in prison, get into fights, we're going to become thugs and become a curse to everyone else in this planet. Can you say the same about those parents? It is not the parents that are bad. Motherhood is good, yes. It is so that we have a chance as mothers and fathers to bring a life into this world and actually to then teach them, show them the path to freedom, show them the path to real happiness. As parents, ladies and gentlemen, this is what I ask you to do. Do what is right by your children so that they can achieve happiness, real happiness. And then, of course, do the same for yourselves as well. Don't hang your hat of happiness on your children. If you do, remember, it only takes one lightning bolt. That's all it takes. It only takes one slip. It only takes one car. A driver who's not looking where they're going. They say don't, if you're sleepy, pull up. If you're drunk, don't drive. Yeah, that's fine for you, but your vehicle is not the only vehicle on the road, is it? You can watch your speed, but what about all the oncoming traffic? How do you watch their speed? Because for two things to come into collision, they don't both have to be moving, do they? When you go bump into a wall, how fast was the wall moving? A drunken driver's just gone into a tree. Was the tree drunk? So you're stationary. You're sticking to the road rules. You're driving at the speed limit. Right? You're keeping to your lane. But oncoming traffic, the next driver that gets himself on the road may be drunk. Maybe he's in a fury. Maybe he's had a problem at home because he doesn't listen to the dhamma, although you do. So when he's in a fit of rage, he can't control himself. Maybe some guy pulled up in front of him and now he's in a fit of fury. Have you not seen erratic drivers out there? People, just because they're angry, they're furious and they want to take over someone else. Have you not seen in some countries how bus drivers drive their buses? How it's a race on the road? You don't have to be in that bus, do you? What if you're a bystander? You've just come to the shop to get some milk and bread. How do you know where your vipaka is going to come from? If you're alive, that is all that is required. If you have a body, that is all that is required. That's why I said this is a magnet for punishment. This is a magnet for punishment. You're walking on thin ice, ladies and gentlemen. Your bodies are very fragile. The people don't even like to think about it that way. Because this is their temple. This is their shrine. I used to go to the gym. But I used to do that because the doctor said I needed to. I understand that. That I get. Because if you got this, now you have to maintain it. But there are those who go to the gym to pump up, build up their muscles. I don't have anything against them. All I have is empathy towards them. See what they're doing, wasting their time? Building up something that will only perish. Why bother? Is that what human life is for? Do you think I'm jealous? This is just sour grapes. Far from it. I see young people, go to the gyms, like they want to be Arnold Schwarzenegger, right? Pumping up their bodies, muscular guys, and they're showing off, trying to impress others. Impressing others with what? I'm not jealous, but I feel sorry for them. Those who can do it with their bodies, do it with their bodies. But those who can't do it with their bodies, do it with their houses. They do it with their cars. In whatever way, you just have to make yourself look bigger. There's an ego playing inside. Because when you feel small inside, you want to make up for your deficiencies. That is how it works. The Buddha has very wonderfully explained. When you feel small, you want to put up a big show so that others who look at you think that you are bigger than you feel inside. That's why they say an empty vessel makes the most noise. So when you see people making a lot of noise, this is making a lot of noise. When you see people making a lot of noise, you've got to realize inside they're empty. And then do what about it? Have empathy. Ask them to come here. So I can explain to them that you think you are muscular. You think you are well-toned. It's just a thought. It is not you. This is just ignorance, playing tricks on your mind. So, parents, I ask you again, are you ready for that? Tell me it will never happen to you and I'll walk away. If all the parents in this room can tell me, Swaminatha, these things, yes, they happen to people, they happen to some people, they'll never happen to us, tell me that and I'll walk away. You don't need me here then. But if this I put on YouTube, they'll ban the channel. Honestly. So this never made its way to the YouTube. It'll ban the channel. Why? Because this is the Montessori. You mustn't say these things to people. You mustn't tell people about bad, terrible things that can happen to them because they get shocked. And then people will start to do what? They'll start to think. See? They don't want you to think. They'll start to think about what do I need to do to save myself from this. Prince Siddhartha was an outlier. He went against the odds. He went against every voice. What if everyone decided to do that? Sometimes people come and ask me, Swaminatha, it's good for you to come and say, let's go ordain, let's go and fulfill our path, let's go and attain Nibbāna. But what if everyone does that, then who's going to look after this world? Sometimes people come and ask me that. What's going to happen to all the people who are going to become doctors, the people who are going to become the teachers, the people who are going to become the lawyers? If they all do as you say they should do, and they all go into robes and become monks and nuns, then who's going to rule the world? I say, good question, madam. So, sir, you better not do that. I have a better question. What happens if the sun rises in the west? Then what do we do? Let's plan for that. Why don't we plan for that? Because it's never going to happen. That's why. Every day, there are more people disrobing than there are those going into robes. By now, I think 2 years ago, we had about 30,000 monks in Sri Lanka. In the whole of Sri Lanka, 30,000. A small minority. Of them, I don't know how many are focused on their salvation. Again, environment. As I say, show me the 5 people you spend most of your time with, I'll tell you who you are. In the same way, show me a monk and show me the 5 people he spends his time with, and I'll tell you who he is. That's why I spend my time at the monastery. I only come out when I have to give a talk. I'm very careful about who I spend my time with. That's why I don't watch TV. That's why I don't read the papers. Until my job is done, I want to keep myself safe. But you must be brave. But of course, then you'll ask me, Swaminatha, if you don't watch TV, you don't watch the newspapers, how do you know what's going on out there? Yep, you got a point. So there, I shut my mouth. You have to be there to look after the world, mustn't you? Whereas it's my job to get the heck out of this place. Please, people, think about yourselves. I'm talking about you and you alone. When you're here, I don't want you to be a teacher. I don't want you to be an engineer. I don't want you to be a mother or a father. When you're here, it's just you and you alone. Do you get that? It's just you and I. I'm talking to you and you're listening to me, and I want you to make a change in your lives. Perhaps this is too harsh. I don't know. Sometimes on the way back to the monastery, I ask the Swaminatha, I ask the Anagarika Mahathas driving, was I too harsh today? Was that too much? Did I say too much? Should I tone down a little bit? I ask them. Because I don't know how these words might make you feel. Might they offend you? I don't know. Because in the environment that you're in, these things are pretty offensive. If they knew that these are the things that I tell you, They'll bring out a curfew every Sunday morning. Because as I say these words, you know, these things, they go into your head and you start thinking, don't you? They don't want you to do that. They just want you to follow orders. When you're 5, start going to school. And do that for the next 13 years of your life. Go to your tuition classes and there are some set choices that you have to make. Choose science, choose math, choose econ, right? Choose this, choose that, some set choices that you have to make. This is the path that has been paved. Everyone takes this path. It's the beaten path. Everyone takes this path. So you don't have to think what you have to do. There are a few choices, but all of those choices are predetermined. And they're laid down for you. And then by the time you come to 16, 17, start getting to an affair. Because people will tell you, right, it's now time to find someone in your life. By the time you're 20, you've got to be settled down. Right? If you are 25 going 30, right, then it's getting a bit, too long in the tooth. Now people start asking questions. What's wrong, Dua? The parents will be asked questions. Now imagine if you had a 35-year-old daughter at home, unmarried, parents. What would people come and ask you? Something wrong with her. Why do they say that? Why do they say something wrong with her? See, that is the beaten down path. You've got to take that path. If you just stray just one step, now, it's the talk of the town. Now you have to be answerable to everybody. People who were not there when you brought the child into this world, when you kept her in your womb for 10 long months, people who were not there, who didn't give a damn. Right? When you had to look after her, when you had to teach her, when you had to feed her, when you had to save her from all the prying eyes, right, and all the predators that were out to get her, when no one was there at that time. So you kept her safe. You brought her up to be a good, law-abiding citizen, respectful, with dignity, right? You bring her up. And now she's 25 and everyone takes interest. Now you have to be accountable to every man and his dog. Why is she not getting married? Something wrong with her? Shall I speak to this Kapu? I know him. Mothers, fathers, I think you know what I'm talking about. In fact, you even start getting worried if your son is going to 20s, 30s, that sort of age, you start to get worried. Now I have to answer to my brother and my next door neighbor. You have to answer to them. And it's like it's a law. You have to get them. You have to give them off, marry them off. It's like a cardinal sin if you don't. See, this is the beaten down path that we have all got to tread. You can't sway off. You can't waver. You just have to follow that path. And then when you go to the supermarket, it's all decided for you. What bread you eat, what rice you eat, what milk you drink, it's all decided for you. All these choices are made on your behalf, so you just have to follow. Don't you ever feel like, there's too harsh. Too harsh. Let that go. Take charge of your lives, is what I'm asking you to do. Last week I talked to you about I asked you to start to think about some of the things that you do in your life, such as, I gave you the example of dancing. Remember how dancing makes you happy? I told you to go and dance in front of a mirror when no one else is watching, and just look at yourself. Again, I don't know whether these things people find offensive. It's not meant to offend. I just want you to explain, I want to explain to you reality versus this make-believe reality. This is not true. So I have something else to show you as well. Excuse me. Have you all heard of a mantis? You all seen a mantis? Well, if you haven't, don't worry, you'll see one today. Excuse me. A mantis is a very special kind of insect. A very special kind of animal, insect. It's a very interesting creature to study. Okay, so I want to show you a short video clip of a mantis. Can we? So, as you watch this video clip, this can go on YouTube, it's fine. As you watch this video of the mantis, I want you to observe why I say that this creature is very special. Okay, there are some very special characteristics, attributes about this creature. Watch them and make a mental note, and then I'll talk to you afterwards. Right, let's have a look. Think about what you find interesting. So what do you think the mantis is doing? Excuse me. Twerking. Twerking. Flirting. Yeah. Looking for a partner. Yes, that's what it does. So it's flirting. That's its mating call. Okay? So that is what a mantis does when it's looking for a partner. What? Not just the mantises, I mean, is it? Right. Watch this video clip again, and now tell me what you think the mantis is doing. And now what do you think it's doing? Dancing. So previously that was trying to mate or trying to find a mate. Right? That was his mating call. And now you're saying it's dancing. So as you start to think that it was dancing, do you think the mantis changed its mind and now it started to dance? What is dancing then? Is it out there? Or is it in your minds? See, before you watched it without the music. Right? Previous time you watched it without the music. So it was just some raw movements. And then you didn't say that the mantis was dancing. Because of course you know that mantis doesn't dance. In the mantis's mind there is no concept of dancing. So you don't say that the mantis is dancing. But as you watch it with the music, and you can see it moves along with, through the rhythm of the beat, and the music. And of course you know that the mantis is not doing it to the music, but they've, whoever's made this video, they've been so creative, they've managed to find a track, right, that is at the same tempo to the mantis's movements, and therefore it gives you the impression that it's dancing. So if that is dancing, if that is what dancing is, then watch this for a second.
It might not be the right time. I might not be the right one. But there's something about us I want to say. 'Cause there's something between us anyway. I might not be the right one. It might not be the right time. But there's something about us I've got to do. Some kind of secret I will.
What are you thinking now? What is that guy doing? He's dancing. Yeah, you will well and truly say he's dancing, right? Now, you know one thing for sure, he knows he's dancing. The main difference between these two is that you know that the mantis doesn't know that it's dancing. We are confident about that, right? It does, because the mantis has no idea, has no conception of dancing. But this guy, he's dancing. But when you watched the mantis earlier without the music, you said it was just making some movements. That's just the way it is. Last week we talked about the crane fly. So I was just trying to find you something that would convey the idea. I found, the mantis does a better job at that. So here we are. But with the music, it gives you the impression that the mantis is dancing. But when you see this person dancing, what is he actually doing? Let's switch off the music and then watch it. Doesn't have the same effect, does it? Can't that be a mating call? I mean, with moves like that, I'm sure he's going to get some success, don't you think? So what difference do you see then? Thank you. Why do you see a difference? Where is the dancing happening, I ask you? Is it out there Or is it in your mind? It's happening in your mind. Because if dancing was something that was happening out there, then the mantis should also know that he's dancing. And the mantis doesn't know that it's dancing. Because, this is the control experiment. The guy, he's dancing and he knows he's dancing. But they're also just movements. Then you have the mantis, they're also movements, but the mantis doesn't know it's dancing. But with some background music playing along with it, you look at the two of them and you think they're both dancing. When you saw the mantis with the music, you couldn't help yourself but think that it's dancing, could you? You couldn't help it. Because it just happens. You can't hold it back. You know that if the mantis is only moving, you know that the mantis doesn't dance. Dancing is not something that mantises do. You know all this. But with the music and those moves that go along with the music, you can't help this feeling that it is dancing. That is because dancing manifests in your minds. Here's how it works. For dancing to happen, you need two things then. What are those two things? Movements and music or rhythm. There has to be some rhythm. There has to be some music. When those two things present themselves together, dancing manifests. So here's the question, because last week we talked about anicca. This is also an embodiment of anicca. This is an example of anicca. See, through these examples, I want you to grasp this concept of what anicca is all about. So where did the dancing happen? Think about it. Was it in the moves? If it's in the moves, then the mantis is also dancing. And it's not. We know this. So it's not in the moves. Is it in the music? Is music dancing? Is music dancing? No. So it's not in the music. So if it's not in the two causes individually, but you bring the two causes together and something that was not there in the causes begin to surface out of nowhere, that is what a manifestation is. So the dancing was nowhere to be found. It conjured up in your mind at the moment these two causes lined up together. That's why last week we talked about this. Causes have to line up in the right order. So, like if you were asked to dance and the music stopped halfway, what do you normally feel? You feel embarrassed. Right? Someone asked you to come up and dance on stage, and if there's music, then you all dance. Right? But if they stop the music and say, no, carry on, it'll take us another 5 or 6 minutes to fix the setup, just carry on dancing. Can you do that? You're on the dance floor, you're dancing, and the music stops. There's a lightning strike, right? Whatever. And there's a power outage, and say, we're just going to get the power back. It'll take us a good 10 minutes, just carry on dancing. You can't do that. Because you feel embarrassed. Why do you feel embarrassed? Because you feel a void within you. You feel that I'm not dancing now, I'm just making some silly moves. That is what you feel. But put the music back in, now you feel you're dancing. So where does the dancing happen? It's a manifestation. It's not in the music and it's not in the moves. But the two of them together, it's like when they overlap, one on top of the other, now you see dance. You see a dance. This is the concept of manifestation. That is why I asked you the other day, go in front and dance in front of a mirror and see how silly you look in it. Not meant to offend. Just to get you to think about what a dance is. You are dancing because you think you're dancing. So actually the reason I brought up the example of dancing last week was I wanted to ask you, why does dancing make you happy? If dancing makes you happy, shouldn't the mantis be happy? Thinking that it's dancing? And every time you dance, shouldn't you be happy? Now there are some dancers, they're professional dancers, right? Sometimes, they're just so tired, exhausted, but they have to do a performance in front of an audience. So they get on stage. Sometimes maybe that is the 10th time they're doing it for the day, but they get on stage and they have to perform because that is their job. They have to do it. They're not enjoying it at that time because they just want to take a break. They just want to rest. But they have to do it. What about some people who dance for money. Again, I have a 6-year-old in my audience, but I think you know what I mean. They'll dance for money. They may not enjoy what they're doing, but they have to do it. So dancing does not necessarily make anyone happy. Because at that point, they're just thinking they're doing a job. Doing a job doesn't make you happy. But when you're dancing, you think you're doing it as a hobby. Then that makes you happy. So that happiness is a creation of your own mind. It's not in the dancing. That's what I'm trying to prove to you here. It's not in the dancing. It's not in the music. It's not in the moves. Put the two of them together. Now you think you're dancing. Because you think you're dancing, you're happy. That's all. I have one last thing to show you today. To talk about manifestations. We will talk about this in more detail following week. But I think if you can get this concept into your heads, with the example that I'm about to show you, and if you please think about this over the course of the next week, you will all be better for it. What I'm going to show you is a closed environment. It's a closed environment, so nothing can come in and nothing can leave. Observe what you see on screen, and I'll ask you a few questions. So it's a closed environment, nothing comes in, nothing leaves, but there are some changes that happen within this closed environment. I will ask you some questions and see if you can give me the answers to those questions. In trying to find the answers to those questions, you will find the answer to the greatest question. What is anicca? Right, let's watch the video, please. What do you see? Ignore the toys, the Lego men, just ignore them. What do you see? Tomatoes and maggots. Yeah? Okay. So this is a time-lapse video and it's in a closed environment. So this is a glass box, it's sealed on all four sides. Nothing can go out and nothing can come in. All right? So we're at 20 hours now. Any significant changes? No, there's still the tomatoes. It's starting to mist up a little bit on the inside. But besides that, not much noteworthy. Yeah? Let's carry on. Okay, 5, okay, keep going. 6. How many maggots were there? Lots and lots of maggots. This is a closed system. Where did they go? Possibly. They possibly died. Any other answers? Into the tomatoes, yes, that's also possible. Maybe they're hiding themselves in the tomatoes. Let's fast forward a little bit longer, see what happens. Now hold on. Where did the flies come from? It's a closed system. Where did the flies come from? Huh? The maggots. No, the maggots went somewhere, didn't they? And the flies came from somewhere, didn't they? But it's a closed system. So, where did they come from? Where did they go? You're nodding your head because you know that it is the maggots that went on to become the flies. Yeah? And the tomatoes are now, they're rotting and they've been consumed. So, these they are not as fresh as they were at the beginning. And if you weighed the tomatoes, they wouldn't be the same weight now. Okay? Let's carry on. Right. Now, just think about what you've seen here. And think about why Swami Maharaj is trying to show this video to you. What is he trying to explain to you here? See, there were tomatoes. There were the tomatoes. It doesn't look much like a tomato. There were tomatoes to begin with. Then, of course, we had the maggots in the environment as well. They are the maggots, they're the tomatoes. After some time, you had, let's say, half a tomato. So you saw that the tomatoes were being consumed. So it was not the full tomato. And there were fewer maggots. Some of the maggots started to disappear. They were going into their gestation period, about to go into the next stage of their lives, because they had consumed the food that was needed for that process, and they were, of course, turning into flies. Then you have the flies. Then you have the flies. What are the flies going to do after a while? They're going to lay eggs. And those eggs are going to become what again? Maggots. So when you have the eggs, those eggs are going to turn into maggots. Let me draw the eggs actually. You're going to draw eggs. The eggs are going to become maggots, and they're going to keep feeding on the food. You see this cycle here. This is a closed setup. So nothing was taken out of this environment and nothing was introduced to this environment. There was nothing alien here. It was a fixed environment. So what happened to the tomatoes? Did the tomatoes become the maggots? Did the maggots become the flies? Did the flies then go on to become maggots again? And do the maggots then go on to become, well, a tomato? At least take this part of the cycle, because you know what you are, what you eat. And the same concept applies here, but because this is a closed system, nothing comes in and nothing leaves. But what you see is the same matter and energy being reconfigured. Initially, they were only maggots. So where did the flies come from? And when the flies started coming, where did the maggots go to? Where did they disappear to? All that was happening was the matter that was in here at this stage and the energy, ultimately matter is energy. All that was happening was the matter and the energy that was here was being reconstructed, reformed, rearranged into another construct, into another arrangement. It is possible because there is nothing fixed in this world, ladies and gentlemen. So a tomato is not fixed, and a maggot is not a fixed thing. It's not an entity. It is just an arrangement of matter and energy at any given moment. Take it apart and arrange it in another way. Take the fly apart, arrange it in another way. Surely, if it can go one way, it should be able to go the other way. So that is how, inside a fly's body, eggs could be formed, which later on then went on to become maggots. And those maggots would start to eat on the food again, and then they go on to become flies again. Now, of course, like any system, this is not perpetual, because there's always energy that is leaking from this system. As you saw, there was mist on the glass, and that is heat leaving this system, right? But that's a science conversation, not to be had for today's discussion. What I'm trying to explain to you here is, nothing in this world is fixed. I always ask you this question. If the two of you who come from the same home eat from the same pot of rice, before you ate the rice, could you look at the rice and say, this is me and this is my wife? Serving two plates of rice, right? Can you look at the rice and go, this is me and this is my wife? Or this is my brother and this is my sister? You can't say that. But once you put that stuff through your mouths, these bodies have the engineering within them to take it all apart and rearrange it. Your bodies, your arms, your legs, your blood, your muscles, your bone, your tissues, everything, or everything about you is simply a rearrangement of the matter that you put in through your mouths. So the fact that that is possible means that there is nothing fixed in this world. Everything is merely a manifestation at any given moment. See if you can try and get your heads around this point. So why am I talking to you about this? I mean, this is science. That was not an arahant who produced that video. That is science. Science will help you understand how this works. Yeah, that's perfectly fine. But here's the deal. When you see a tomato, you can't help thinking that there's an actual tomato there. In other words, that arrangement of matter, you actually identify as a tomato. You think it's a tomato and it can only be a tomato. When you see a maggot, now, normally when you see maggots, what do? Don't you feel squeamish? They're repulsive little creatures, aren't they? Nobody likes maggots. But what about the tomatoes? Is it not the tomato that becomes a maggot? Do you see where the problem comes? What you put in through your mouth, you take with both hands and put it in. But as it goes through your system and comes out the other end, what do you do with it? Do you take it with both hands? Now you laugh. Is it not the same stuff just rearranged? So why do you find one repulsive and the other attractive? Here's why. Here's what science cannot teach you. Science will tell you how the carbohydrates, the proteins, the vitamins, they all went through the body and came out as feces, as stools. But what science can't teach you is why, when you look at it, you have this feeling that feces is feces and rice is rice. Why you feel when you look at it that they are units, that they are things, that they are fixed things. That is because in your mind, it's all right. That's because in your mind, you project certain structures, you project a fixedness onto manifestations in this world. But really, out there in the world are only and purely manifestations. What are manifestations again? Just matter and energy arranged in a certain way at any given moment. But you know for certain that you can't always perceive them in that way. That is why, as I say, rice, your food that you put in through your mouth, you can hold them with both hands. Just think about how you might eat a submarine. Not that big, the submarine. A bun. Just think about how you eat a bun. You hold it with both hands, you munch it and you chew it, and you take the sauce back and put it in your mouth. If you see around your lips, right? You devour. But as it passes through your system, all that's happening is a rearrangement. Yes, certain arrangements will have a different smell. Certain arrangements will have a different color. That's natural. But what comes out the other end, you find repulsive. Why? So then why does an arahant not find it repulsive? For one reason and one reason alone. For an arahant, he understands that all it is a manifestation. There is nothing to attract to and there is nothing to get into. No attraction and no affliction. Neither. Because there are no fixed things in this world. The reason I got this video to show you is because here you see a fixed environment. You know that nothing could have come in, nothing could have gone out. It's as part of this experiment. So the flies couldn't have come from anywhere. So what became the flies? The tomatoes. But as you look at it, you think it is the tomato that became the fly. Not so. A tomato is merely an arrangement of matter. The same matter. So, after all, what's in the tomato? You'll find the carbons, the hydrogens, the oxygens, the nitrogens, right? Take that stuff, rearrange it, and now you have a fly. You have a maggot. But a tomato you will take and you'll put it in your mouth, you'll find it delicious, you'll find it scrumptious, you'll eat it. But a maggot, a fly, let alone a maggot, a fly, you find it disgusting. Why? Is it not the tomato that became the fly? So then why do you treat things differently? It's because you can't help your mind projecting likes and dislikes onto this world based on a fixed notion of objects that exist out there. Really, those fixed objects don't exist out there. All there are manifestations. But your mind projects a fixedness to them. And you think that these objects are actually there. Now, what is the problem? So what? Yes, we get it, Swaminathan. I understand what you're saying. So what? And here's the answer. Do you know why that mother cried? Why she was grieving so much? Why she was rolling on the floor and pulling her hair out and almost, in fact, eating the soil of the ground, with so much grief? For one reason. She couldn't see that it was the rice that was rearranged to make the children. That she couldn't see. She thought it was her children that died. But really what happened? She is a mother, she cooks for the children. Even as she was a mother cooking for the children, she couldn't stop to realize that it was just the rice the pudding, the dessert, the fruits, whatever the children had eaten, the milk that the mother had fed them, right? It was just those things, the carbons, the hydrogens, the oxygens, the nitrogens, the whatever. It was those elements that were rearranged, and then she had her children. One difference, of course, in the rice there are no chittas that arise and pass away. But in the form of the child, there is. Yeah, that is there, I understand that. But a chitta is merely a chitta. It is just an instrument to recognize perceptions, rather recognize manifestations. That is what perception is. A perception is a recognition. A perception is merely an understanding of a manifestation. Those children, they think they are children. They think this is my mother, just as much as the mother thinks that I'm a mother and these are my children. These are all creations in the mind, ladies and gentlemen. But the mother she doesn't know about any of this stuff. So she thinks these are my children. And therefore, when things break, when things fall apart, when things decay, you think that decaying, that breaking apart, that falling apart, that destruction is actually happening to the object that you're observing. When in fact it's not an object at all. It's purely a manifestation. If you can see the world as simply manifestations, you understand that all there are just arrangements that are there in that moment in time, at that moment in time. They're just like hung together in a certain order. So really, there's no such thing called breaking. It's just a concept that we have taught ourselves. We think things break, don't we? Things break. This fan breaks. For you to claim that this fan breaks, there has to be a fan here. What if this is just a manifestation? This is just matter in a certain arrangement. So if it's matter in a particular arrangement, how does the fan break? It's not the fan breaking. The arrangement is changing. That's it. An arrangement can change, but it doesn't break. But when something happens to you, your bodies, your children, your loved ones, right? You look at it and you think, say your child has a fall and it breaks an arm or a leg. That brings you suffering because you think the leg is broken, my child is hurt. These are all projections of the mind because the mind seeks to identify fixed objects, entities. This is what moha is all about. You have heard these three, raga, dvesha and moha. Moha is a state of mind where the mind conjures up a world in which there are entities. Remember, I always keep telling you folks that there is nothing to let go in Buddhism. All there is to realize. So, if you can realize that all there are manifestations, then what is there to let go? Right now, you could hold on to this, and you think you're holding on to a fan. Okay? But if you can bring yourself to the realization that this is merely a manifestation, now it's not a fan you're holding on to. The arrangement we conventionally call a fan, yes, I don't deny that. Conventionally, we give a name to this arrangement. In the same way that we give a name to this arrangement, what do we call it? A pen. We give a name to this arrangement, we call it a whiteboard. We give a name to this arrangement, we call it a fan. We give a name to this arrangement, we call it the body, a human body. We give a name to this arrangement, we call it a tomato. But we change the arrangement and we get this. Now we call it a maggot. It's just a change in arrangement of matter and energy. That's all there is. If you can see the world through that lens, now you're not seeing fixed entities to which things happen. The reason that we suffer is because we think things are happening, bad things, terrible things are happening to these physical objects, to these entities that we project into the outside world, but actually none of that really exists. Do you remember no and on from last week? They were merely manifestations. Yeah? This was just a word. Where? Where was this a word? In your mind it was a word. So if I pull these letters apart, at some point you're going to say, this is no longer a word. These are just two letters. So did the word break? What happened to the word? Do you think N knows that it was stood next to O and therefore I was part of no? Do you think N knew that? What about O? Do you think O knew that? No. Neither of these two causes were aware or were cognizant about the fact that they were stood next to each other. But as we observed it, we thought of the two as a word. Because out here, there was purely a manifestation. This is what a manifestation is. Because there are manifestations, and manifestations alone, nothing breaks. But you go to the doctor with a broken arm, don't you? And you say, doctor, my arm's broken. I got a fracture. And then they try and heal it, they try and mend it, they try and fix it. Really, that's not a broken arm. It's just a change in manifestation. What was bone, or calcium carbonate, another piece of calcium carbonate. Now you have bone, air, bone. That's what you have. Previously, there was the bone, and the air was out here. Or the blood, or the liquid, like whatever, the fluids were out there. Now, it's bone, and here you have. That's it. But conventionally, we understand that this is a bone. That is only a conventional reality. It's a conventional truth. It is not an absolute truth. So these parts that go into making the bone, the molecules that go into making the bone don't have any clue that they're actually part of a bone. The calcium carbonate in a bone doesn't know that it's part of calcium carbonate, let alone the calcium carbonate. The calcium doesn't know that it's part of the carbonate. It doesn't know that either. They're merely stood there just randomly. But together they have certain properties. When together they have certain properties. Apart they have different properties. Together they have different properties. What we do as people with minds, we wish to see fixed objects, fixed elements, and therefore we project. We project our own expectations onto manifestations, and then we think that the object of our expectation is out there. And then when the manifestation changes, we begin to suffer internally. That is why I say you are the architect of your own suffering. You so carefully and so diligently and so wonderfully create your own manifestations. That is also a manifestation. You create your own suffering. So no one else is responsible for it. Which goes back to my point. Why do you bring yourselves here? On whose behalf? On your own behalf. So you can come out of this wrong thinking. I'm seeing a few blank faces in the audience, and that's perfectly fine. Because this is the first or the second talk in this series that I'm actually starting to delve into some of these more deeper concepts, and that's fine. I'll give you 100 examples of these things, similes and metaphors and all sorts, until it makes sense to you. You just need to come along and try to understand what it is I'm trying to get across to you here. But just before we conclude, this experiment that I showed you earlier in that video, you agree that nothing came from the outside, nothing left. So it was a closed environment. So if you were to ask, just imagine you didn't have this knowledge of science that it is maggots that go on to become flies. Just imagine that you don't have this knowledge. Okay, you were just your knowledge of science was very primitive. You can see things, but you don't know where things come from. Now the maggots disappeared. Where do you think they would have gone? That's a mystery. And then all of a sudden flies come from somewhere. And now it's a mystery. See, now we have the mystery of creation. So someone must be responsible for creating things. So then we talk about a creator. A creator. No one creates. All there is cause and effect. What are the causes? When those causes line up in a certain order, when there's a particular arrangement that the causes take, that arrangement itself is also a cause, as I proved to you with no and on. Isn't arrangement a cause? In this arrangement you tell me there's no. In this arrangement you tell me there's on. Yeah? But the same causes. It's the two same letters, but the arrangement is different. So in fact, you can see at least 3 causes here. What are those 3 causes? N, O, and their arrangement. At least 3 causes you can see here. So these 3 causes manifest either one of these 2. Here, the manifestation is because of N, O, and the arrangement of O after N, or N before O. That's one cause. Why is this different to this? It's the same N, it's the same O, but what's different? The third cause is different. The arrangement is different. So you see, as soon as the arrangement is different, now it's a different cause. Therefore, it's a different manifestation. You can, at any point, take the N, stick it in front of the O, change one of the causes, and now it's a different effect. This is what cause and effect is. See, the same concept happens here. There's a tomato here, meaning there are molecules, there are carbons, let's just say carbons, there are carbons that are arranged in a certain order. Take that order apart, rearrange it, stick it in another way, and now you have maggots. So what are you then? What are you? Think about this. Why do you value this form so much? Why do you care so deeply about this form? I'm talking about the bodily form, this form. Why do you care so much about it? You know, if you get a blister on your face, right, maybe a pimple, some people, that is enough for them to commit suicide. Some people, they're so concerned about freckles, pimples. It's just some blemish on their skin. Maybe, if they feel they're a little bit too big or too small, in whatever department, right? They feel that, they don't feel adequate. They feel like, how can I survive like this? You do know, don't you, that young girls these days, fashion industry, the trend, it has the indoctrination that it keeps putting into the people's heads. Anorexia is a big problem among young people. Because people are so stressed. Some people, they can't keep what they put in because they just keep vomiting with the food that they take. This happens on an epidemic scale. Maybe it doesn't happen in your families, so maybe you know very little about these things, but this happens on a global scale. This happens a lot, ladies and gentlemen. Like I said, it's because of that television that you have at home. Nothing wrong with the television. Nothing wrong with the internet. Nothing wrong with Facebook. But the wrong stuff can get through those things. There are young girls as young as 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, because they come and talk to us. We know the problems that people go through these days. We know these things. You only know what your daughter comes and tells you. You only know what your son comes and tells you. But on a regular basis, we speak to at least 20, 30 young people on a regular basis. Every day, people come and tell us the problems that they have in their lives, problems that they can't share with their folks, they can't share with their parents, because they feel their bodies are inadequate. They feel that either they're too small or too big. And, there are some young girls in schools in Sri Lanka. They're saving up their lunch money. You know what for? Enhancement surgery. Don't ask me what. They're saving up their lunch money, sir. If the mother knew this, do you think she'd give her lunch money? If the mother knew this, she'd keep her at home. Because where do they pick up this rubbish from? Really? From school. Because what guarantee do you have about the person sat next to your child? Do you vet them? Do you scrutinize them? I'm not saying anything's wrong with schools. The school has to teach the curriculum. That's what a school is there for. Right? I mean, you can't have a school. You think they can do this all 5 days of the week at this school? They can't. That is not what a school is there for. The school is there to teach science, it's there to teach math, it's there to teach sociology and geography and politics and economics and art and literature and poetry. That's what a school is there for. It's there to teach math, French and Spanish and English. That's what a school is there for. The fault I see is with parents. Parents have a responsibility that you can't just shrug your shoulders to. If you brought a child into this world, it is your responsibility to not just feed it and bring it up and teach it. You've got to look after your child and develop it mentally. Because if you don't, someone else will. Your children are so gullible. They're so susceptible. They're so innocent. They learn, they like a sponge that absorbs the liquid that it is in. Your children will just absorb whatever is in its environment. You need to be more responsible than this, ladies and gentlemen. Unfortunately, again, I'm speaking to the wrong crowd. Because people who need to hear this are not here. In either case, if you're here and your children are not here, do something about it. Do something about it. Because your daughter is at school right now. Well, not today, she will be tomorrow. But she'll be sat next to somebody who will show her a magazine, maybe a fashion magazine, maybe something on her phone, maybe something she got off WhatsApp or Facebook or Instagram, and say, see, look at this, look at the size of those things. That is what a perfect figure looks like. Look at you. God hasn't been very kind to you, has He? They will put this stuff into your daughters' heads. And the same thing will happen to your boy as well. Young children these days, boys, they feel so inadequate about their bodies. If you're a male, you should be what? Muscular. You should be muscular. You should have lots of muscle. You should have toned muscle. You should build up your bodies. If you're a male, you should be like that. But say one harsh word, and they start crying. They start sobbing. They start looking for a rope to put around their necks. How male is that, I ask you? Is that what being male is about? Inside, they're so feeble. They're so weak, so fragile. Outside, it's like a fortress. What's the point? Because all of this just returns to the soil. All that remains is how much fortitude you have in your mind, how righteous you are. The merits and the demerits that you have done and accumulated is all that you take with you. So once again, for your sake, and for the sake of the people that you love and care so deeply about, give them the dhamma. The dhamma is the only refuge. There is no refuge than the Buddha, Dhamma and the Sangha. Look for refuge elsewhere and all you will have is suffering. So please, be accountable to yourselves. At the workplace, you're accountable to your boss. At school, you're accountable to your teachers. At home, you're accountable to your spouse. Who are you accountable to? About yourself. About yourself. About your peace of mind. Who are you accountable to? Nobody cares if you don't. Nobody cares. Go to a fast food restaurant. I'll just give you one example. Go to a fast food restaurant, okay? And you put in an order for food that is, highly saturated fats, lots of sugar, all the stuff that you shouldn't be putting down your bodies. Do they ask you to get on the scales before you place the order? Do they? Do they tell you, show me your cholesterol report before I give you this order? Do they? No, they don't care. As long as you're prepared to give them the money. So you think they love you? You think they care about you? No, they'll watch you eat yourself to death. And when you are dead on your tomb, they'll come and put a nice little M over it. They don't care. It is not their job to care, because if you don't care, why should they care? Sit in front of the TV. Do they ask you how ready you are to see these things on TV? Do they ask you? Do they check your credentials? Does the TV channel check whether how old your kid is before they start showing things to you? They don't. I remember when I was younger, when I was 12, 13, 14, that sort of age, I remember at home, in those days, they brought this TV channel out at night. When I was younger, they did this. I'm not going to name any names because I don't want to offend anyone. But they brought this TV channel out at night. You know how I got to know about it? I used to go to school back then. So they said, wait till 10 p.m. And I did. Lights went out. Mom and Dad went to sleep. And here was me waiting till 10. And then fearful. Don't know what's going to happen. You don't know when mother might come and, find out what you're doing. You don't know when father might come and find out what you're doing. Worried, scared, dead scared. 10, you're still looking at the clock, you're still hearing a few noises coming from here, there, you're not sure. Then comes 11, and now you really want it. You want to see what's going on, because your friend has said, it's the best thing, you got to go watch it. And the best thing, they say, it's adults only. When they say you're not supposed to watch it, what's the first thing you want to do? Fortunately, my dad caught me. And he saved me. But nowadays, you don't have to wait till 11. It's around the clock. And you got to give them a device, because without that, they can't do their homework. Do you have a good firewall at home? Do you block adult sites when you give your smartphone to your children? No. But all of these things, sight by sight, it influences them. It manipulates them. It feeds them. What you put in through your mouth is food for the body. What you put in through your eyes and ears is food for the mind. If you put in junk, you get junk. Why are young people these days like junks? Because that is what you put in their heads, junk. Not you, it is what happens. You have missed that generation so fortunately, just one generation. If you'd been one generation late, things would have been very different. How many young people can you get to come and sit into one of these sermons? Don't think everyone is like this young boy here. Not every 14, 15, 16-year-old will manage to come and sit here like those young men at the back of the room. Not everyone will be happy to do that. This is not what young people want to do. They want to enjoy life. If that is enjoying life, then why are you here? Because they still haven't learned the lessons that you have. That's why. But when it comes to their turn to learn those lessons, they will be too late. Oftentimes I get you come up and ask me, Swaminathan, these sermons are far too long. Not for you, for them. You ask me, can we shorten these sermons to like 5 minutes, 10 minutes, at most 15 minutes? Because I know some young children, they won't sit down to listen or even watch something that is more than 10 minutes long. Because what has social media trained them to do? Shorts. instant gratification. This is all training from the outside. Nurture, nature. By nature, everyone has potential, but nurturing them done wrongly completely destroys that potential. That's what's happening. I can't blame social media because we use it ourselves to promote the dhamma, the truth. But you've got to understand, nowadays, young children, they can't come and sit down and listen to a talk for 10 minutes, 15 minutes. They get bored out of their heads. They're bored out of their skulls because they can't. They need instant gratification. That's what they need. They need it, and they need it now. Because that is the training that they have received. Fast food, instant, online. Order it now, order it now. Whenever you have a vexation, order it now. So they can't manage to sit down in a sermon and listen to it. I'll be very surprised if you can fill this room up with 15 and 16-year-olds. Not every 15, 16-year-old is like the children who you see in this room. They're very special. They're very different. They're very unique and one of a kind. That is how their parents have brought them up. And we respect and honor that. Very good. Look what you've done. But try and fill this room up with 15, 16-year-olds. Virtually impossible. They don't have the patience. They don't have the patience to do good for themselves. Let's start at home. Let's start to make these changes, small changes, one at a time. I'm talking about a grand problem, but you start making small changes. Start at home. Charity starts at home. Do what you can at home. Save yourselves first, then help others as well. The more you understand the Dhamma, the more you'll be freed. But have a sense of urgency, because time is always running out. Time is never on your side. You're 2.5 hours older than when you came and sat down in this sermon this morning. That time you cannot get back. Fortunately, you spend that time wisely, gaining something out for yourselves. The return on investment on that time is a lot. But the return on investment that you spend those 2 hours at a coffee shop, what? What return do you get out of that? A coffee. So, that's the thing. So,
It's my first time here.
welcome.
I don't know if you can ask questions. I don't know what the format.
If you can ask questions at the end when we are done. Thank you. Which reminds me, it's time that we are done. So let's conclude for today. We'll talk about this again next week. I want to further explain this concept of manifestations to you and help you understand this concept of anicca, because when you understand anicca, you'll understand what dukkha is. Once you understand dukkha, you'll understand what anatta is. Once you've honed your understanding of anicca, dukkha and anatta, you're free. After that, you needn't come back again. You're free to do what you want. All right, let's transfer the merits for today and conclude. First and foremost then, let us take a moment to remind ourselves how fortunate we are to be in receipt of the Lord Buddha's teaching, and with immense gratitude towards the bhikkhus and bhikkhunis, upasakas and upasikas, who have since time immemorial protected and preserved the sublime teachings of the Buddha and passed it down through the generations of the noble lineage, in the form of the Tripitaka, which is thankfully available to us today to study, understand and comprehend the Dhamma. Let us transfer these merits to all of them. Let us also transfer these merits to all members of the Mahasangha present throughout the world, including the chief priests of all of the chapters, who've dedicated their lives to the noble path and have committed themselves to the betterment of all sentient beings. Let us also not forget that amongst them are the monks and nuns resident in your local temples and nunneries, who've always been by your side through thick and thin, come rain or shine. Let us also transfer these merits to my teacher, Guru Swami Nuhanse, as well as all the monks resident at the monastery and the Anagarika and Anagarika communities attached to the monastery. Let us also take a moment to transfer these merits to those who make great efforts to disseminate the teachings of the Buddha, be that by transliterating these talks, sharing them out with others, or inviting others to join them. Excuse me. Let us also take a moment to transfer these merits to friends of the monastery, our devotees, who, for the sake of merits to help them attain the Supreme Bliss of Nibbāna, continue to sustain the Mahasangha. This includes everyone from those of you who provide for the construction of the monastery, as well as those who provide the Mahasangha with shelter, alms, robes and medicines. and extend their well wishes and their know-how. May they all rejoice in the merits that we have all acquired today, and by the power of these merits, may they be healed of any physical and mental ailments and overcome any obstacles to their spiritual progress. May they abstain from the unmeritorious deeds, fulfill the meritorious deeds, fulfill the noble eightfold path, and may they all attain the supreme bliss of Nibbāna. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Let us also take a moment to transfer these merits to our mothers and fathers, husbands and wives, brothers and sisters, sons and daughters, grandparents, uncles, aunts, cousins, nephews and nieces, our friends, our acquaintances, our employees and our employees, as well as our teachers and those who have helped us, supported us and assisted us in any way, shape or form. May they all rejoice in these merits, and by the power of these merits, may they be healed of any physical and mental ailments and overcome any obstacles to their spiritual progress. May they abstain from the unmeritorious deeds, fulfill the meritorious deeds, fulfill the noble eightfold path, and may they all attain the supreme bliss of Nibbāna. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Let us also take a moment to transfer these merits to the Devas and Brahmas and spirits and demons, primarily the Sakadeva, as well as all the numerous gods and deities who have committed themselves to the fulfillment of the Sambuddhasasana and the preservation of the Sambuddhasasana. Let us also transfer these merits to our guardian deities who keep a watchful eye over us and keep us out of harm's way. By the power of these merits, may they prosper in divine power and wisdom. May they abstain from the unmeritorious deeds, fulfill the meritorious deeds, fulfill the noble eightfold path, and may they all attain the supreme bliss of Nibbāna. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Let us also take a moment to transfer these merits to those who have passed away in our name, our loved ones, our ancestors, our forefathers, those who have predeceased us. May they all rejoice in these merits. Let us remind ourselves that it is the blood, sweat and tears that they have shed on our behalf. Today we are able to enjoy the fruits of and practice the dhamma and follow the path to our liberation and our Nibbāna. May they all rejoice in those merits. Let us also transfer these merits to those who make great sacrifices on our behalf, including those who sacrifice their lives to protect the peace and harmony of our nation, as well as the friends and foe who might have died in the wars that have been. Let us also transfer these merits to those who have lost their lives to natural disasters such as the tsunamis and earthquakes, landslides, fires, pandemics, and so on. Reminding ourselves that in this infinite long journey of samsara, they will all have been mothers and fathers to us, brothers and sisters to us, friends and acquaintances to us, those who would have gone every distance to help and shape our lives for the better. With an abundance of gratitude towards all of them, may they let us transfer these merits to all of them, and by the power of these merits, if any of them have been born in the woeful plains, they redeem themselves to be born in the blissful plane. May they abstain from the unmeritorious deeds, fulfill the meritorious deeds, fulfill the noble eightfold path, and may they all attain the supreme bliss of Nibbāna. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. And finally, may by the power and the blessings of all the merits we have acquired throughout the day, we be able to witness the advent of many hundreds of thousands of arahants on this blessed land. And finally, may you and I and everyone who has helped make this program a success become a Rahatan Vahanse or an Arahat Theranin Vahanse in this very life itself and in the era of the Gautama Supreme Buddha itself. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. May the blessings of the Noble Triple Gem be with you all. The members of the Mahasangha will now transfer their blessings to you. Raga ginnen midetva, dvesha ginnen midetva, moha ginnen midetva, Nibbāna parama sukhayan sukhita taravetva. Nibbāna parama sukhayan sukhita taravetva. Mamada siyalu loka siyalu satvayo Nibbāna parama sukhayan sukhita taravetva. Nibbāna parama sukhayan sukhita taravetva. Nibbāna parama sukhayan sukhita taravetva. Raga gini niveva ක්ලේශගිනි නිවේවා මෝහගිනි නිවේවා නිවන් සැප ලැබේවා නිවන් සැප ලැබේවා නිවන් සැප ලැබේවා තුන්රුවන්ගේ සූසි අනන්ත මහා ගුණ බෙලෙන් සියලු ලෝක සියලු සත්වයෝම නිබ්බාන පරම සුඛයෙන් සුඛිතතර වෙත්වා සාදු සාදු සාදු